Okay, let's just forget all the talk about viral hacks for a second. Everyone is chasing that overnight explosive growth. But the real story, it's usually, well, a lot less sexy. So today we're going to peel back the curtain on a real-world playbook for the grind. This is how one brand went from absolute zero to a real, thriving community. Literally, one post at a time.
Every single brand out there, I don't care how big they are now, they all start right here, at zero. Yep, 0 followers, 0 content saved up, absolutely 0 momentum. It is probably the most intimidating number in all of marketing, right? But you know what? It's also the most honest place to start.
So the journey we're looking at took 10 months. And the big question is, how do you possibly get from that lonely starting point all the way to something that actually feels meaningful? What on earth happens in the middle? Well, let's break it all down. All right, let's dive into the first phase, what I like to call the grind. We're talking months 1 and 2. And look, this was all about one thing, pure, unadulterated volume. Just throwing stuff out there, figuring it all out in public. It was messy, for sure, but it was also absolutely essential. And you have to understand, the challenge here was immense. They weren't just making a few posts. They were literally creating an entire identity from scratch. I mean, think about it. No library of photos to pull from, no established brand voice, nothing. Just this simple and kind of terrifying command, build a presence. So how'd they even begin to do that? Get this. Over those 10 months, they created and published 920 individual pieces of content. No, that is not a typo. We're talking multiple posts every single day. That number right there, that sheer volume, is really the foundation for this whole story.
But here comes the brutal, honest truth about all that work. A staggering 80% of that early content, it just didn't work. Flat out, it didn't get likes, it didn't get comments, it sure didn't drive follows. It just existed. Only a tiny 20% of it actually managed to hit the mark.
And look, this might be the single most important lesson from those early days. That 80% failure rate, that wasn't a mistake. That was the strategy. You get it? You literally have to make the flops to find the hits. It's just the cost of admission, the price you pay to learn.
So after a couple of months of just, throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what stuck, something started to shift. The team stopped guessing what people wanted and started actually listening to what the data was telling them. And that was the real turning point.
Okay, so here's the first big aha moment. They figured, hey, let's show these big, beautiful kitchen scenes. Makes sense, right? But the numbers told a completely different story. Tight, delicious-looking close-ups of the food, they outperformed the wider shots by 3 to 1. 3 to 1. The audience didn't want the context. They just wanted to see the food.
And the next big discovery was all about being perfect. That super polished, magazine-ready content? Yeah, that wasn't what people were connecting with at all. It was the messy, behind-the-scenes stuff, the process that got twice the number of saves. People were craving authenticity, not perfection.
Now here's the crucial part. These weren't just, oh, that's interesting observations they talked about in a meeting. No way. These became their new marching orders. The entire content calendar got torn up and completely rebuilt around 2 super simple ideas, food close-ups and messy behind the scenes.
Okay, so now we're entering the final phase. They finally had a clear idea of what was working, so it was time to, step on the gas. This is where they decided to add a little fuel to the fire with a small, very strategic ad budget.
And that brings up the million-dollar question, right? If you've only got a small budget, how in the world do you decide what to put your money behind? Do you just close your eyes, pick a post, and hope for the best? Nope, absolutely not.
Their strategy was actually beautifully simple. Step 1, post everything organically, for free. Step 2, watch the numbers like a hawk and identify the posts that are already winning on their own. And step 3, you only put your ad money behind those proven winners. See? They weren't buying lottery tickets. They were betting on a horse that was already winning the race.
So, after all that, the grind, the learning, the accelerating, what was the actual payoff? This is the part of the story where we get to see how all those small, consistent, kind of boring efforts finally start to come together in a big way.
And to really get what happened next, you have to understand something called the compound effect. For months and months, progress felt agonizingly slow. But think of it this way. Each one of those 920 posts was like a tiny deposit into a savings account. For a long time, you couldn't really see the interest, but trust me, It was quietly building up in the background. When you look at the whole 10-month timeline now, the story arc is just crystal clear. You have the initial grind, just to learn what's what. Then that critical pivot based on real data. Then the acceleration with smart, strategic ads. And finally, you see the emergence of a real, actual community. Each phase just built perfectly on the one before it.
And the final payoff? From that lonely 0 to 5,800 engaged followers in 10 months. Now look, it's not 1 million followers, right? But what it is a real, earned audience. One that was built from the ground up with consistent, unglamorous, unsexy work.
But here's the final twist, the real kicker. When they looked at the ultimate driver of their growth, what do you think it was? It wasn't the ads. It was the community itself. The conversations and the comments happening on their posts ended up driving more new followers than any paid ad ever did. Basically, the content built the audience, and then the audience started building the audience for them.
So when you boil it all down, this whole journey was built on two things: consistency and a willingness to do the boring, unglamorous work. And that kind of leaves us with a question for you, doesn't it? What's the small, consistent, unsexy thing you could start doing today that in 10 months from now might not look so small after all?